Here we are out on the Woodlines, driving through some of the thickest countryside I have ever seen. Hardly been travelled on, although Mark's been down here a couple of times before. We've had 2 punches already. I'm struggling to find a pathway through all these trees and things, and yet Mark has managed to spot a bottle off the side of the road, probably 50 metres or so inside there, and now we've lost him. I'm sure that he will emerge from the bush anytime soon with a fistful of bottles. But for now, we just have to wait until he re-emerges.
Our last few trips to the Woodlines have been on the western side of the Coolgardie-Esperance Highway. This time we are taking a look back to some of the tracks we explored on the eastern side a couple of years ago. And as always, we enter the bush just out of Hyden when we leave the bitumen and get to the rabbit-proof fence. And this is what we come to see: the old railway locations and the peace and quiet.
And it actually doesn't look that old. It's only 50 years old. Yeah, but it's looks like it's a good nick.
Oh, and maybe find a few artefacts.
You want that? Robin?
What is that?
Mark thinks
It's a cool drink.
Really?
lemon essence, or he first thought it was California coffee.
A coffee stop is always welcome. In these trips, we generally picked up camp every night and found somewhere else to visit. This was the first trip with a couple of motorbikes, and these have allowed us to stay in one place much longer and explore deeper into the bush. The tracks in this area are also less overgrown and much easier to follow.
You didn't wait for me! I was coming all the way up there!
Cutting firewood and getting a fire going is a priority, after setting up the campers that is, especially when it's wet and cold. Honestly, mucking around with matches and flints is silly when you have a gas lighter and fire starters.
That's how you do it, Tom. Champagne driving. Real four-wheel drive. Real four-wheel driving. With real four-wheel driving. It's good, isn't it? Got my hat. He's fucking got it.
Bit late for that.
In some sections of the tracks, enormous works were carried out. In this particular spot, we are driving on the spoil removed from a cutting that was made to even out the grade of the railway line to make it easy for the locos to negotiate a small hill.
Big rocks just here. Roger. Do you want me to aim for him?
I love your big rock.
Well, that's one whole series of audio I'll have to cut out.
While we are still driving on the spoil bank, the depression where the railway tracks used to sit is just to the right. Even on relatively clear tracks, it is still possible for something to go wrong. From the front vehicle I could hear the unmistakable sound of air escaping, and I knew that we needed to quickly put a plug in if we wanted to prevent having to remove a wheel.
There you go.
That's one flat tyre.
Is it?
Tonight you need to change that on the back.
Every now and again I miss the track I want to follow, but really not many people come out here and there are a few well-worn tracks. The risk here is that the trees have grown close together, and with the trailer in tow you have to be careful when turning to avoid putting a dent in the car or becoming hung up on a tree.
We've just pulled up at another log across the track. Steve's going to bring the chainsaw up. This is one of the routes that I found a few years ago, and it hasn't had a lot of traffic in the last 4 or 5 years. Not since Steve and I came up here last time. So we'll just rip this log off and get cracking.
Most times we will clear the fallen trees. It is better than smashing a new track around, and it's pretty easy with a chainsaw. I have used many chains and a few bars over the years, and the only time we leave a tree is when we think it will cause people to slow down a bit on some of the more heavily used tracks.
Haven't got one of these. Na, 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 na. Check that out.
You're right, I haven't. That's fucking excellent.
What is it?
I'm sure I'd want to have these pelletinoids.
Pelletinoids? What are pelletinoids?
I think that's rectomoids. Pelletinoids.
And what's this one?
That'll be Clement's little fallings or something. Yeah, Sloan and Clement's. These are common as batshit. But if you haven't got one, keep it.
At long last, the Mark has emerged from his trek in the wilderness.
Who wrote that on there?
I didn't. I found it. It was on the ground.
He's now inspecting his treasures a little bit
It's got a
closer.
nice cap on it. It looks really good. Doesn't look hardly damaged.
1942.
This one is 1930.
Is it really?
Yeah? It says 30 on it, or is
Oh,
that 30 mil?
no. Sand. But it's bisurated magnesia. Bismag. I've heard of that before, but never known what it was. If ever I have to use an axe that long and it breaks, I'm doing the wrong job.
Oh, something was in there.
We've got these at home,
Yes, we have.
and it was honey once that
Yeah.
I had in one of these,
Yeah.
and this is made in York.
But didn't you find one like that up north? Wasn't it up
No.
north? No.
So
Oh.
York in WA.
Even with the small bikes, it is still possible to get hurt. Paul tested the handlebars with his
Oh,
ribs.
hang on, I can see that.
Handlebars 1, Paul 0. And this is the moment we select a campsite for the next couple of days.
Seriously? Ah.
You get a
Now
flat
what?
tyre, you have to change it yourself.
Now what?
We've got to wait for that.
The camera, Steve. Don't look at the camera.
We didn't camp here, but what a great sight it would be.
On the old Hyden Road, and we've had another bit of drama with the trailer on Stephen's car. The tailgate's fallen off, and we've lost that, a chainsaw, and a couple of drums of fuel and oil.
The four-wheel drive sections don't end, even though we are well on our way home. and Paul discovers he needs to engage four-wheel drive.
Do you want Mark to come back?
That's how you do it, Tom.
Now we are back on the maintained gravel roads and heading back to the Big Smoke yet again.